Buddy Fiction Pop. Let's go. Hello, everybody. I am your host, Eric Smith. Today, my guest is an author who writes about superheroes and psychos and other things that start with S. And I get away with that joke. Thank you. This is my favorite horror with Marcy Rockwell. Welcome, Marcy.
Thanks, Eric. Thanks for having me. Hi, everybody. Nice to be here. Happy Halloween.
Yes, the perfect time of year. My favorite season.
Oh, mine too. It's the best.
Well, I like to put people on the spot right off the bat. So, as a way of introducing yourself to viewers, if you had to write your author bio right now, what would it say?
Well, joke's on you because I have to provide my author bio so often that I pretty much have it memorized. So, Marcy Rockwell is an award-winning multi-published tie-in author and poet who has written works in the Marvel Universe and Dungeons and Dragons online worlds, and is a Chippewa Red River Métis and a disabled pediatric cancer and mental awareness advocate who lives in the hellhole called Arizona with 3 of her 5 children, 1 cat from hell, 1 traumatized dog, and my husband, Jeff Marriott, and God, so many books. And I love it all. It's wonderful.
Great. Well, first of all, isn't saying that a cat from hell, isn't that kind of redundant?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, there are some people out there that swear they have like little cuddle bundles, but God, I've never had one, so.
I love cats, and one of the reasons I love them is they're bastards.
Yes. Every cat I've ever had. Even we just lost one and unexpectedly, and it was devastating. I still cry about it. But even that cat was an asshole. So,
But they're wonderful little assholes.
Yes, they are.
Is Arizona that bad?
Oh my God. We had 31 consecutive days of temperatures over 110 degrees.
Oof.
And I don't remember the last time it rained. I mean, I think we had 1 day of rain during the summer, maybe 2. But it has, when I moved here, gosh, 2001. Yeah, 2001-ish. It would get into 110s once in a while in the summer, like in late August, and summer would start in June and end in August. And now summer starts in April and ends in October. So it's
October should be chilly.
I know. And I'm from Montana, so I'm used to my fall being cold and leaves and crisp air, and you can still get that in the northern part of Arizona, but I am in the Phoenix area, and it's really hard to find that, and it's just getting hotter and hotter here, and it's pretty miserable during the summer for sure.
I don't want to rub it in, but it's raining here right now.
That's okay. I mean, the earth needs it, so I'm glad it's raining somewhere.
I'm in Ohio, so we are experiencing that right now. Really great autumn weather.
Oh, sometimes you guys get too much rain. We don't get enough, and you guys get too much.
Yeah, and it has been an odd. Just last week, it was in the 80s, and then dropped 30 degrees the next day, and then back up in the 70s. It's not 110 8 days in a row, but it's just crazy variation.
Yeah. Did I say 8? Because it was 31.
Oh, maybe I heard 8.
Yeah, 31. Yeah, it was.
Wow.
was a record.
There you go.
Not one that we're happy to have made, but yeah. Anyway.
All right. Well, I was looking at your website to prep, and I guess my biggest question is, what does a civil engineer do?
You know what? My aunt used to joke, "Oh, are you a polite train engineer?" And I was like, "I hate you, Aunt Sue." But no, civil engineers, we actually are kind of one of the broadest categories of engineers, because civil engineers do bridges, structural stuff. They do things like dams. They do traffic things, so they build roads. They do the stuff that I do is more focused on water, hydrology and hydraulics. I am specifically, or was specifically, focused on stormwater and the environmental compliance and regulations that go with stormwater. So it's really, when I was in getting my degree, we had to take classes in like all of those disciplines. Geotechnical engineering also, which is foundations, building foundations. In fact, I went to graduate school for a little bit. I didn't finish it because I moved out of state and lost my in-state status. And so my tuition went way, way up and I couldn't afford it anymore. But while I was in graduate school, I worked on a project for NASA where we were working on understanding the soil properties of a simulated lunar soil so that they would understand what it would take to build the foundations on the moon.
Wow.
So, yeah, it was pretty cool, but that was a long, long time ago.
Well, I work in a factory building transformers,
Hmm.
and we generally not fan of our engineers, but
I get it.
that's a different thing. They're a
Yeah.
different type of engineer. But that sounds, especially the moon working with NASA, sounds fascinating.
Yeah, that was really cool. It was a cool opportunity. I was disappointed when, I couldn't continue my studies because I published a paper with my advisor about it's very technical, but anyway, it was cool and nerdy and I enjoyed it, but I didn't get to finish that, but that's okay because I did work as a civil engineer and found that I actually really loved the stormwater and the environmental stuff way more than I ever liked the design portion of it. So everything worked out the way that it was supposed to. So
Very nice. Now you mentioned advocacy. Can you tell us a little bit about what you do there?
well, it's not like I have any formal position or anything like that, but my youngest son was diagnosed with cancer when he was 4 months old. And pediatric cancer gets about 4% of federal funding dollars for research. There hasn't been a new development in chemotherapy for use for children since the 1950s, right? So every step forward in that area has come from private funding. And the private funding comes from mostly affected families because they're the only ones who know anything about it.
Right.
So obviously I was dumped headfirst into that world with my son's diagnosis. And although that was 14 years ago now and he's doing well, I have never stopped advocating for more awareness, more research, more funding, because that's the only way to get a cure. And there's actually some exciting things finally starting to happen, but every September, I try to raise money because September is Childhood Cancer Awareness Month. So I try to raise money for various charities that try to fund research, private research, and just try to bring awareness whenever I can. My oldest son, his senior project was, because that was around the time of my youngest son's diagnosis, there's a big gap between them. His senior project was all about bringing awareness to pediatric cancers. And so, like, I helped him put together this big thing, and we were able to raise, like, I don't know, $4,000. He got an A+ on his project, and
Nice.
it was great. But yeah, so it's not like I'm on the board of some corporation or anything like that. I just do what pretty much I would say any parent who has had a child with cancer does, and that's tell everybody that we can and try to make people aware, because awareness equals funding equals cure. So, and it's kind of the same thing with the mental health awareness. I specifically really focus on teenage and pediatric mental health awareness. And that's also because my daughter has struggled with a lot of mental health issues. She had to withdraw from her excuse me, sorry. I was looking at something on the calendar on my wall there, which I need to change because it's not September anymore. Anyway, she had to withdraw from the first semester of her sophomore year in high school because of mental health reasons. And it's not something that people talk about. Our school district had, the year that she graduated, had 9 suicides. And, so I'm always, the school board here hates me because I am always on them about what are you doing about this, and whenever students speak out about it, I do whatever I can to amplify their voices. I don't try to speak over them, because I think coming from them, it's the strongest message, right? They know what they need. And the best thing I can do is support them, amplify their voice, and, give the money that they don't have to make that possible. So that's how I advocate for them. And, my daughter's doing well. She graduated with her class, and everything. So everything's going well, but I continue to do that work because my kids are okay, there's a lot of kids out there that aren't, and there's a lot of parents who aren't in the position that I am to be able to do this work. Mm-hmm. So I continue to do it, and I will continue to do it until, I'm in the ground, I guess.
That's fantastic. Now I don't know how to transition.
Sorry. Well, in the ground, then I could be resurrected as a zombie. How's that?
I asked the question. It's fascinating. But let's talk a little bit about your writing. And I think we should just jump right in with where I became familiar with your work, which was Aconite. And of course, we have Sisters of Sorcery, and your new one, Marvel Zombies: The Hunger.
Yes.
I was so excited for this.
Oh.
How did you get hooked up with Aconite?
Well, Aconite, what they do is called tie-in fiction, And for people who aren't aware, I'm sure you are, but people watching this, listening to this, tie-in fiction is when you write fiction. It's licensed fiction. It's contracted by the IP holder, the person who has the license to the intellectual property. So it's different from just fan fiction in that way, because the person who owns the property is giving you permission and is in fact paying you to write about their property. So I got involved in tie-in writing with my very first book, which was for Dungeons and Dragons. And the tie-in writing community is not super huge. We have our own professional organization, and a lot of us are friends. We let each other know about opportunities. Somebody mentioned Aconite, and I went to their website, and they actually have a thing on there for you to send in writing samples. So I did, and they invited me to pitch. Excuse me, I'm drinking a very large Diet Coke here at the same time, so I apologize. Anyway, they invited me to pitch, and I sent in several different pitches for what ultimately turned into Sisters of Sorcery, and then sent in some other pitches, and then the editor that I had worked with on Sisters of Sorcery said, hey, we're looking at something new, and I think that you would be great for it, so I'm going to hand you off to this other editor, Gwendolyn Nix, and let her talk to you about this and see if it's something that you might want to do. And that turned out to be Marvel Zombies: The Hunger. So it's pretty cool.
I was wondering when I saw the announcement about the Marvel Zombies that I was wondering if it was going to fit into their Marvel lines, or they also do Zombicide, and there's a Marvel Zombies Zombicide game. So I didn't know which one it was going to fit into.
Well, this is kind of how they explain it. So the Marvel Universe, as comic book fans, and the Marvel Cinematic Universe is its own thing, right? But the Marvel Universe that comic book fans know is like Earth 616, right? So the Aconite Marvel Universe is like Earth 618, right? Really, really close, but we're allowed to change things here and there.
Yeah.
And then the Marvel Zombies universe is not Earth 616, right? So my Marvel Zombies book is off a couple of digits from the Marvel Zombies Earth, just the way, the 616 to 618. I'm not rolling out the numbers because I think it's like some 5-digit number or something that I don't remember. So, but yeah, it's just, it ties into the comics version, but it's a little bit different. So.
Well, I as soon as it came, I pre-ordered it, and as soon as it arrived, I finished what I was reading, which was Christopher Golden, All Hallows. Great book.
Chris is actually a good friend of my husband's and mine, and so yeah, that was a great book, by the way. I loved it. So
yeah, it was fantastic. But as soon as I finished that, I picked up my Marvel Zombies so I could read that. I know when I first heard about it, I tweeted something about it was going to be the best book of 2023, and you responded with, well, no pressure there.
Yeah, right. Well, I hope you still think that after having read it, but it's okay if you don't.
Well, I've already recorded my review, and spoilers, it's a positive review.
Yay.
And that's one of the things I like about the Aconite books is that they are more comic centric than MCU cinematic universe centric. As much as I enjoy the cinematic universe, I'm a diehard, comic book fan from way back, and Uh, so I enjoy that, there's Easter eggs to comic stories that I've read and all sorts of stuff. What's your history with comic books, just in general?
Oh man, well, probably shouldn't admit this, but I'm actually a DC fangirl.
Okay.
If I turned my camera to my wall, you would see that it is covered with original art,
Ooh, nice.
Wonder Woman and Donna Troy art, because Wonder Woman she's my gal, and I've been reading Wonder Woman comics and comics in general. Gosh, I remember reading the original Teen Titans, Wonder Girl in her blue, her red outfit with the stars, and Richie Rich, and obviously Archie. But I what, third grade? I mean, I've been reading comics forever, and I've kept up with Wonder Woman for a long time. There was a while in there where I didn't read a lot. I didn't like some of the runs that they did with Wonder Woman. So since she was kind of my anchor into comic books, then I wasn't really reading a lot of comic books during kind of that run. But I got back into it. And I think, except for people who are really hardcore into comics, it kind of does go like that sometimes. Like you're really into it for a while, and then like you're not, and then you get back into it. And I don't know. I think it ebbs and flows sometimes, especially if you're a fan of particular writers. Like I'm a huge Gail Simone fan, so you know. Anyway, so yeah, I mean, I just superheroes. I used to watch Super Friends on TV. I would watch Wonder Woman, obviously, Linda Carter, my first girl crush, right? I watched ISIS. I don't know if you remember
Loved ISIS.
I loved ISIS. I was so excited when they had Moon Knight on the TV series, and I had so hoped to see ISIS, but there was no ISIS. Spoiler alert for anybody who hasn't seen the series, but it's been on for a while now, so I guess if you haven't seen it by now, I'm not responsible for spoiling you. But yeah, I've always read comics.
I think, especially people of our generation, as a comic reader, I was reading DC, I was reading Marvel, but a ton of Archie and Richie Rich and Casper and all of that
Casper,
stuff.
yeah.
The
Wendy.
I remember the Archie Digest books.
Yep.
And nowadays I love what they're doing with the Chilling Adventures stuff
Oh
in
yeah.
Archie comics.
So fun.
Because being a huge horror fan, seeing I thought Chilling Adventures of Sabrina was fantastic.
Oh
I
yeah.
haven't seen the show, but I love the
It's
comic.
great. Oh, definitely. You should definitely pick, if you get a chance, watch it for sure.
And the Hunger, Jughead the Hunger, and Vampironica, and Cullen Bunn's Blossom 666. Great
I'm not
stuff.
familiar with that one, so I'll have to check. I'll have to look for it. Excuse me, I'll have to look for that one next time at the comic book store.
Basically, it's about determining which of the Blossom twins is the Antichrist.
Oh my God.
I think that's the elevator pitch.
That
And I love
sounds
Cullen Bunn.
awesome. Oh,
But again, if I moved my camera around right up there where no one can see where I'm pointing, I have the first, I think, 8 volumes of the new Teen Titans.
nice.
Marv Wolfman and George Perez, just fantastic stuff. It's just stacks and stacks of DC and Marvel, and on the opposite wall is I have comic books just plastered on the wall. in plastic with backing,
Oh
and
yeah.
just stuck
Hmm.
to the wall. And it's a decent mix, I think, of, well, it's maybe mostly Marvel, but there's some DC up there. And growing up, I always went in between. Sometimes I was just buying and reading Marvel, and then I'd start buying and reading DC constantly, and then back and forth. Right now, I'd have to say I'm edging into Marvel territory. But I love what both companies are doing with horror stuff.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Uh, DC more so because they've got the Joe Hill curated stuff, and then they're just their DC horror line and Deceased and DC versus Vampires. I liked that stuff. But then Marvel's got, of course, I have the complete collection of Werewolf by Night and Tomb of Dracula, and even the Frankenstein, the run on Frankenstein they had.
Oh. Hmm.
Um, so again, I love superheroes, love horror. When you're throwing all that stuff together, it makes me a happy camper.
It's a party for sure, right?
Um, so let's get a little specific here. So Sisters of Sorcery,
Mhm.
I can name Clea and Agatha Harkness. Is this I can't remember, is this the new shaman?
It's Elizabeth Two Youngman, who was Shaman's daughter.
Right.
Talisman.
That's
That
right.
was, yeah, that's
And
right.
then this one is whom?
Margali Zardos.
Okay.
Sardos. Yeah, she
All right.
is Nightcrawler's stepmom, I guess, adopted mother, and oh my gosh, the magic who took over for a little bit from Ilyana Rasputin, her
Mm-hmm.
mother.
Love magic.
She's even a character in there, and I'm just having a brain fart and can't remember her name.
Uh,
Sorry, read the book.
she was the one character. I keep moving this because my name is my little square up here has my name in it, and I keep thinking I'm covering the
Oh,
the picture with my name. Um, she was the one character that I wasn't very familiar with.
she was
Um,
fun to write.
I have a blind spot. I stopped collecting and reading comics for about 5 years, and so I've been made aware of a lot of things that happened in that time, but not to the extent of, you know, all of the stuff I've actually read. So I was not familiar with her.
It's impossible to keep up with everything. There's just so much, right?
Oh, absolutely. I try to keep up with everything, books and comics. It's too much.
Yeah.
But I love Alpha Flight.
Mhm.
So Shaman and Talisman, and of course grew up with when Agatha Harkness was babysitting for the Fantastic Four, and Clea, possibly the oldest character as far as when she was introduced in the comics. I don't know if it would be her or Agatha, but she's pretty early on in Doctor Strange, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she is early. Um, but then Agatha comes on pretty early with Scarlet Witch and Vision too. So
Yeah, yeah.
both in the 60s.
Um, so yeah, I had a lot of fun with this. Again, you've got the magical characters, and even though I'm not a big fan of X-Men for some reason, I don't know why, but I love New Mutants
Mm,
and love Ilyana Rasputin, magic, great character. For me, X-Men is one of those books. It depends on who's writing it.
yeah.
I loved Victor Gischler's run, but then he was doing vampire stuff, so you know I dug it. But and then I haven't actually read. I finished The Death of Doctor Strange, but I haven't read the series yet. I have the collected editions where Clea is the Sorcerer Supreme. So I'm also
Yeah, I started the first few of those, and then I was busy writing a new book, so And when I'm writing a book, like I can't really read anything else because I have to immerse myself in what I'm writing. So, like anything like comics that you have to keep up with on, a monthly basis or whatever, I really fall behind on. And it's sometimes hard for me to pick it back up again, especially if like major plot points are spoiled along the way, because then it's like, well, now I know that's going to happen. So what's the point of reading? So I haven't finished that run and I probably should because I think Clea would make an excellent Sorcerer Supreme. I do remember not initially liking the first few comics in that run because I didn't like the way they depicted Clea after having just spent so much time with her, writing her, because she's depicted as very much like her mother, Umar.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not her. I mean, I feel like I'm kind of an expert on Clea because up to that point, I had pretty much read every Clea comic that had ever been written. I even have the novel. There's a Doctor Strange novel that was written back in the 70s, 80s, maybe.
It's right over there.
Yeah. And Clea's in it for a little bit. But like, anyway, it was not her. It was completely uncharacteristic. And I understand that there were reasons for that. But for characters who don't know her, they only really know Doctor Strange. And that's their first introduction to her. I was just like, oh man, that really grates because that makes her seem like something that she's not. And if they don't continue on, right, to get past that, to see who she really is and why she's acting that way, then that's the impression that they get of her. And that kind of makes me sad because she's a good character and she wasn't served as well as she could have been in the comics, especially, originally, because it was in the 60s and, women were kind of love interests and maybe sidekicks if they were lucky. So, anyway, yeah, no disrespect to the writers. I know what they were trying to do, but it was just hard for me having just written her myself to see her portrayed that way. So
I'm way behind on my comics. I'm probably getting to the point where I'm almost a year behind again. I have a huge stack of monthlies, and I'm trying to cut down on what I get monthly and just go with collected editions.
yeah.
There are some titles like Moonlight. I'm getting that every month. The new Blade I've picked up. I haven't read it yet because I'm so far behind, but I want to get Blade every month. But yeah, so the Doctor Strange I've been getting in the collected and haven't read them yet. When you went into writing this, did you have to do a lot of research, or were you able to pull up all those memories of the comics that you read?
No, I had to do a ton of research. I was on Comixology. I was buying old comics off of eBay and World Star Comics, I think, just everywhere. I was getting them from everywhere. Because I hadn't read a lot of Doctor Strange. When I was reading Marvel, I was reading like Valkyrie was one of my favorites, and Hellcat, and Scarlet Witch. So I knew Agatha, but I knew Agatha from, the Scarlet Witch days and not from before when she was with the Fantastic Four and babysitting or the nanny for Franklin Reed. So even for her, I had to go back and do research. I knew Talisman because I had read Alpha Flight, and I am being indigenous myself. I had definitely kind of latched onto her character. when she first came out, because the whole thing about representation matters, right? So I wasn't seeing a lot of female Indigenous superheroes, and she was from Canada and I lived in Montana. So basically the same thing. And people laugh when I say that, but for my people in particular, that border meant nothing. We had people, that border is an imaginary line, right? So we had lands on the north of it and on the south of it. So it was basically the same thing to us. And so I was pretty familiar with Talisman, but even then, there was stuff later on, from when I stopped reading that I didn't know about, and I had to go back and read. And then Margali, I knew next to nothing about, but I had liked X-Men off and on. Like, I really like Kitty Pryde and some other characters, but I think Kitty Pryde was my favorite. But I needed another magical character to kind of round them out. And in reading some of the other comics, she kind of came up as somebody I could tie in, in a way that made sense, because she had some conflict with Doctor Strange, and it would make sense that, she would know Clea or be familiar with her. And, it would make sense that Agatha, who is described as having been around since the sinking of Atlantis, it would make sense that Agatha knows everybody, right? So she was really the anchor character. She's the one who brings everybody together in that book. And there's also a surprise character in there that nobody probably knows about, because she was in like 6 comic books and then was dropped. But, and that's Holly LaDonna, who was in some early episodes or issues of The Scarlet Witch when the twins were being born. So I was able to take some liberties with that character and have her, because Wanda kind of stopped practicing in the comics. She kind of stopped practicing with Agatha after the twins were born. So Agatha would have needed a new student, and Wanda had been teaching Holly before the twins were born. So, kind of made sense. Well, okay, Agatha will pick up where Wanda left off. And, so I was able to bring in that character as just kind of, which was fun because I got to make her what I wanted her to be, because she didn't have a past, really.
Right.
So that was the closest I could get to creating my own character. Because with the Aconite books, like, we weren't allowed to create our own super powered characters.
Mm-hmm.
But that was kind of my way around it, by using a character nobody else had used, but could conceivably.
Kind of a blank slate.
Yes. So she was fun.
Nice. Well, we seem to be living in a golden age of access to old comics, I suppose, with things like Comixology, but with so many omnibuses and the collected editions, we have access to all of this old stuff. I have quite a few of the omnibi, but the epic collections, I've got like 5 volumes of Doctor Strange, and I have like Tigra, the complete collection, and I think I have Hellcat, something with Hellcat, and I have the new one on order. And I need Alpha Flight. I need some
Yeah.
sort of, because I loved that back in the day. But we have so much access now.
Well, I am also kind of uniquely positioned in that aspect, in that my husband, Jeff Marriott, who's also a writer, was with IDW back in the day, with DC, with Wildstorm. You know, he was with all of them as an editor and as a writer back during that comic heydays in the 90s. So our garage, we have a 2-car garage, and we could only fit 1 car in it because it is full of comic boxes. So, you know, I don't have everything by any means, but we do have a hefty collection of comic books that, you know, probably a lot of other people aren't blessed enough to have access to. So,
Well, as someone who has sold my entire collection twice, it's nice for me. I don't have to go hunt down all these old issues, because for me it's about just having the story to read.
yeah.
I don't care about anymore. Back in when I was younger, I don't care about having the actual issues. You know, I wouldn't say no, but like Iron Man was my favorite character for the longest time, and the one biggest collection I had, and I sold it all, and now I'm able to get those in the Epic collections so that I can reread those stories. And a lot of I'm waiting for DC to reprint the stuff that I really want, which is Blue Devil and Fury of Firestorm.
I loved Firestorm.
Firestorm was so great. I just need a collected edition. And I loved I don't know, I had so much fun with Blue Devil when he came out. But
Right, listen up. Do you hear that, DC? Come on.
come on, DC. Well, since you mentioned your husband, we'll throw this book up there. And I've spoken to a number of people who have collaborated on things. What was it like collaborating with your husband? Any problems, or was it all smooth sailing?
Well, again, I'm really lucky in the aspect that, well, Jeff has collaborated with a ton of people already, so he's, you know, it's old news to him, and he does it really easily. I, on the other hand, have a really hard time collaborating with people, because for me, writing is like a really intensely personal thing. So I probably could only do it with my husband. But since his background is also in tie-in writing, and when you do tie-in writing, it's different from just writing a book and trying to sell it, because in that case you write the book and then try to get money for it. But in tie-in writing, you have to write a detailed outline and get it approved by the license holder, the person in charge of the intellectual property. And then they pay you to write the book, right? So it works out better, except you probably don't get paid as much as if you were doing original stuff. But we both came from the background of having to write really detailed outlines before we started. So we were able to work out the outline together first. So any kind of problems that we might encounter, we kind of hashed it out on that level before we ever started writing. And then we have a lot of the same strengths, and we're able to mesh our voices really well. So we didn't do like I write a chapter or he writes a chapter kind of thing with that book. We have another book that we collaborated on where we did, you know, break up certain chapters. But on Seven Psychos, we didn't do it that way. just one person would write until they felt like it was a good stopping point, or like if at that time we both had day jobs. So, if one person was really busy with their day job and couldn't do as much, then the other person might write a bigger section or whatever. But we'd write until there was a stopping point and then hand it over to the other person. They would read over what that person had written, kind of smooth it out, and then pick it up and keep going. So it was really smooth. And like I said, we can't even tell who wrote what now. So it was a really good experience. I understand it's not that way for everybody all the time. I've tried collaborating with friends on things, and even really good friends who we respect each other's writing, like each other, write very similar things, and just the ego got in the way. But, when you're married, you can't afford to let the ego get in the way, right? Because you got to sleep in the same bed that night after you're done writing. So, but it worked really well, and I really liked that book.
It's a hefty one too.
It is.
Thick.
It is. It's fun though. It's psychopaths versus zombies. How can you not love that?
Yeah. And speaking of zombies.
Yes.
All right. So, I guess we'll do this kind of quickly so we can get to our main event. But your brand new one, Marvel Zombies: The Hunger. Now, this has a lot of characters that I love. And so basically we have our core group is Zelma Stanton, Nico Minoru. I always want to say it Minoru, but Minoru. One of my favorite characters of all time, Elsa Bloodstone.
Yeah, she's awesome.
And Deadpool. How did you pick these as the characters that you wanted to use?
Well, honestly, because this is the first book in what we were kind of thinking might be a new horror line for Aconite. Like it was less of my original pitch and more of them saying, well, we kind of already pitched this to Marvel, so, what can you do with it? So, like, Deadpool wasn't really my idea. And I think, like, even Elsa was their idea, but Zelma was mine, because I'd become pretty familiar with her from Clea and Doctor Strange and all that reading that I had done. I forget where Nico came from, if it was me or them or both of us together. But I was already pretty familiar with Nico because I'd watched the Runaway series, and obviously not the same, but similar. And I had read some of the other Runaway stuff with her in it, and I'm a huge fan of witch anything. You probably can't see it, but the shirt I'm wearing is the Sanderson sisters from Hocus Pocus. So, I mean,
I went with Little Son of Satan myself.
Yeah, I see that. That's awesome. But yeah, I mean, give me a witch, I'm there for it. So I was happy to include, whatever witchy characters I could. So it was kind of a mix of my ideas and characters that were given to me. Honestly, I enjoy watching Deadpool in the movies. I was really worried about writing him, and I know that some people don't think I did a good job with him, and I apologize, Deadpool fans. I did the best I could. He was not my idea, not my choice, just because I was worried that I couldn't pull it off, and I didn't. That's the worst thing you want to do, is come into something that has a big fan base with characters that people really love and feel like you're not sure that you can pull the character off. You know, so like I said, you know, I tried to get the interactions down the way I thought they probably would go if those characters ever were thrown into a situation together. And I thought the Elsa Bloodstone and Deadpool thing, they actually were thrown together in one of the, I think it was one of the Marvel Zombies comic book arcs, or it might have been a Battle World thing. I forget exactly, but I think they were together.
Well, they were together in Kelly Thompson's Deadpool run. I don't know about I have one of the Battle Worlds that I haven't read yet, but in her run, where he was King of the Monsters.
Oh, that's right.
She was in that, and I actually haven't finished reading that run yet. But again, I'm very far behind. I read like the first half. I haven't read the second half yet. So that's where my mind went, was their pre-existing relationship there.
Yeah, I tried to pull, you know, they're both very snarky characters, and you know, Nico is a very snarky character. So I at least felt, I'm a very snarky person. So I at least felt like I could, you know, probably pull that off. Okay. So yeah, the situation was also one that, you know, was kind of already preset, because we were following the Marvel Zombies comics, right? And, you know, a meteorite comes and hits the Earth, and all the supers get zombified, and what are you going to do about it?
Very quickly in this case. What is it, 2 pages, 3 pages?
Well, because we didn't want to focus on that. That
Right.
wasn't the whole thing, right? It was, what do you do? You know, what do you do after this happens? So, and I had a word limit that I had to stick to. So, you know, it's hard to, there are parts that I would have liked to have spent more words on, but if you do that, then you have to spend less words elsewhere. So, you know, you got to kind of pick your battles, I guess. Not that they were battles, but just the metaphor that I'm using.
Yes.
And then the time loop thing. I personally am not a huge fan of time travel stories, but, you know, the time loop thing was something that is actually used in the Marvel Zombies comic book arc. And so it seemed like it was something that we could kind of use, but in a different way. And, you know, I thought it worked out pretty well in the end. I was happy with the final product. So,
well, first of all, I like your Deadpool.
Thank you.
Especially his relationship with Max.
Oh yeah.
But I very much like his. I'm trying not to spoil anything. His rather unique relationship with Elsa in this story. I am a fan of time travel stories, and I especially liked this one because of the cameos, for lack of a better
Oh yeah.
terms. I don't know that some are. I think some are more than cameos, but especially the, again, trying to avoid the group that cameos toward the very end. I was very excited to see that.
Yeah, that was fun. Also hard though, because with a group like that, like, then you have to figure out, you know, I mean, it's a classic thing when you're writing about superheroes. When you have people that powerful,
Mm-hmm.
then you have to come up with something even more powerful for them to fight, and that can get ridiculous quickly if you're not careful. So that's always a kind of a fine line that you're walking when you're writing both superhero stuff and with magical characters, and then when you combine the two. But yeah.
Well, I hate to put you on the spot like this, but I do have to say my biggest disappointment with the book: no Bats the ghost dog.
Yeah.
I have to say, Bats makes everything better.
Technically, he's kind of past the timeline of where everything happens in the story, though.
Okay.
So it didn't really make sense to have him, but
Right.
I agree. Bats makes everything better.
That's my note for you for next time.
I heard.
And as a matter of fact, if we can get Aconite to watch this, I'm still pushing for a Tigra novel.
Me too. Me too. That's all I'm going to say about that, but me too.
And I'd be happy with anything, but I think perfect. Well, again, I think it was Christopher Golden, and I forget who else he said he had pitched, Tigra as a private detective in like Monster Town. Would be just
That would
fantastic.
be great. Yeah, that would be awesome.
All right. So now that I've brought everybody down talking about Bats the Ghost Dog and not and I love Bats so much. There's a new well, I just ordered the collected edition of, I forget what it's called, but essentially it's the new Pet Avengers book. And I was on the fence a little bit, because I got a budget, but I saw that Bats was in it.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, absolutely, I have to pick that.
How can you say no to that? Come on.
Plus I love Pet Avengers.
Yeah.
They're so much fun. All right. Well, let's move on to the main event. And you chose for your favorite horror. Well, you kind of threw a lot of titles out at me. You want to talk about John Carpenter. So I think we're talking about Halloween, but we're also going to throw lots of John Carpenter in there, I think. So, folks, if you've never seen Halloween or any classic John Carpenter's movie, pause this video, go watch all those movies, and then come back.
And then come back, yeah.
We are going to, spoilers all around. We're not going to mince words. We're going to just talk about whatever we want to talk about when it comes to John Carpenter and Halloween. Here's my unviewed. I've never watched this copy. I do not have a 4K player, so right now.
That's actually the exact copy that we watched today.
Nice. I love Scream Factory. Yeah. All the special features. I actually tomorrow I should be getting 5 movies from them from their Shocktober sale.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I do not yet have a 4K player, so I haven't watched it in 4K yet. But so Halloween. So why, when I invited you to be on the show, why did you pick John Carpenter and Halloween?
Well, I mean, John Carpenter is synonymous with horror movies in my mind. And probably the master. I mean, maybe people who are younger than you and I might have a different opinion on that, but like Halloween was pretty much the first real slasher movie, right? It's the grandfather of everything. Like, my daughter loves Scream. There would be no Scream if Halloween hadn't happened, right? It's the cornerstone for so much horror that came after. And Carpenter was just a magician, right? He, like, there's part of Halloween, I don't know, I've watched several different interviews that Carpenter has done about it. And one of the things that he mentioned was when he was trying to get people to buy in on it, and he showed them some of the footage, but without the music, they were like, eh. But then he put the score, which he did in 3 days.
Wow.
He put the score to it and brought them back in, and they were like, terrified. And that music is so iconic. Mm-hmm. Like it's like, it is Halloween. Like, yeah. You hear it on the radio. They play it on the radio on Halloween. Like, It's Monster Mash, Thriller, and John Carpenter's Halloween theme music.
Yep.
So you cannot get any more iconic than that. So, and of course Halloween, because I mean it's October and it's almost Halloween. So,
and it is one of the iconic slashers, the granddaddy, and yet very bloodless.
it really is. And like I've watched I've probably seen every Halloween that came after, with the exception of Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. And I don't think making them bloodier made them any better, right? Because it was never about that, right? It was about the things that scare you. And like when we just watched the movie this morning, I watched it with my kids. And like it wasn't about stabbing the guy 15 times and blood going all over and new and inventive ways to do torture porn, right? It was about the atmosphere, like the face that appears in the window behind the character and the audience sees it, but the character doesn't, right? Building suspense, the music, the lighting, it's the killing is almost beside the point, right? And so like it almost cheapens later movies that they become so gory. And like I like the newest trilogy where Jamie Lee Curtis comes back and reprises her role, and we have Tommy and we have Lindsay, and but like I feel like they could have done the same thing without it being so gory, and it would have been more true to what Carpenter did and still just as effective. I do understand that, horror audiences these days, especially with slashers, it has sort of become more and more about how inventive the kill can be. Mm-hmm. That's not my favorite part of horror movies, for sure. So I wish that hadn't become, yes, it's the grandfather of slasher movies, but I wish that the evolution of the slasher movie and the evolution of the Halloween movies hadn't both gone in that direction. I don't know if that makes sense, but
no, that does. And
I don't enjoy torture porn, right? That's just me.
As someone who is a fan of gore and extreme horror, it has its place, I think. And I am a fan of all different types of horror. I know there are people that pick their subgenres, and that's what they like. But I don't think the original Halloween would be improved at all if it were bloodier.
Right.
As much as I enjoy the bloodiness of the new ones, although I'm trying to think of, in the first of the new trilogy, I know there's a lot of violence, but is there a lot of blood? Not that there's necessarily needs to be a distinction between the two.
Well, they kind of all run together in my mind. So I'm not sure where the would-be boyfriend gets pinned up against the friend-zoned guy.
Oh yeah, he's on the fence.
The fence, that's pretty,
Yeah,
and I'm not saying he didn't deserve it, but Um,
I was trying to think of the kills.
and yeah, I just think that also is that the one where the doctor slashes the sheriff or
Yeah.
the cop, I mean those, and I also think that gore has its place. Like I've been binge watching Supernatural, and the very first episode of Supernatural has a werewolf transformation that is so freaking gory. I was amazed that it was ever on network TV. Like, it made The Howling and American Werewolf in London look like PG stuff, right? But it was okay. I mean, it was effective and it made sense within the story, and because it didn't go too far. And that's where I don't like it. And that's where I think some of the stuff in the newer Halloweens just went too far. Like, you can have creative kills, you can have, different things, but you don't necessarily have to linger on it. And the point of it, I don't know. I don't think in the original Halloween, the point of the kills was to increase fear.
Mm-hmm.
And when the point of the kills becomes glorifying violence and just, yeah, then I think it has less value. Right.
Okay. Well, Halloween, it starts off with the killer's POV.
Mm-hmm.
Right off the bat. We're looking through the killer's eyes, and then, of course, the shocking reveal that it's a child. Was that, like, when you first saw that? Was that something that just blew your mind?
Well, I'm going to blow your mind right now. I first saw this on network television.
Okay.
I think I was in elementary school, and they showed it on one of the network stations. So obviously there were commercials. There may have been some light editing, but it wasn't very bloody. So I think the only thing they really edited out was there are some brief points of nudity
Mm-hmm.
in the original, which I had forgotten when I watched it with my 14-year-old child today. So that was a little awkward. But yeah, I watched it when I was very young, and that there was so much about it. Like, I think that might have been one of the first horror movies I had ever seen. And you just don't expect that to be shown during family TV time, right? Primetime TV, when everybody's sitting in front of the TV with their TV dinners. And, so yeah, I wasn't expecting that. I wasn't expecting any of it. And the part that I really wasn't expecting, and why this movie in particular has made such an impression on my brain, is probably because the part where Tommy Doyle says, "You can't kill the boogeyman." And, you see him, one of his many resurrections. My stepdad had snuck up behind me, and where Tommy goes, "You can't kill the boogeyman," and they start screaming. He, poked me from behind, and I just screamed bloody murder. It scared the crap out of me. So, like, I still have nightmares about Michael Myers. So I probably always will. but it's not because, and it's never nightmares about him killing people. It's nightmares about him standing there.
Well, he's very good at that.
I know. The Shape. Like, he didn't even have a name. It was The Shape.
The Shape.
So.
I do have to say, scaring younger siblings, in my case, while they're watching a horror movie is, I feel, a rite of passage that I quite enjoyed.
I was the youngest sibling at the time, so, but it wasn't a sibling who did it. It was my stepdad. I mean, come on.
But I grew up. I grew up watching horror movies. I can't remember a time when I wasn't watching horror movies, because we had a Friday night. We had Big Chuck and Little John that showed horror movies on Saturdays. We had Superhost, and I did have nightmares constantly. But still loved them.
We had creature features. That's what we watched.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm looking right over there at my Criterion copy of The Blob, the original. I love that movie. All those classics. And then I was a young teenager when the slashers started, or actually ending my preteens and getting into my young teens when all of these slashers came out, and so I was there for it. And Halloween could just be called High Tension.
Yeah.
Even though that's a different movie, because it builds, and I've heard people say that they don't like it because they think it's slow, but for me, it's a slowly building dread until that lasts 20 minutes, 15. I don't know how long that last part is when once the sun has gone down.
Yeah.
He's slowly, and there's only 4 people killed at the end.
And the dog.
Oh, we don't need to talk about the dog.
Yeah. My son pieced out at that point. It's like, no, not watching this anymore. But yeah, that's the one thing that differentiates this movie from a lot of horror movies today, because I don't think any horror movie today would get away with that.
See, now I'm an animal lover in real life. I absolutely love animals. I like animals more than I like most people.
Same.
But in my fiction, as long as it's not gratuitous, I do applaud a creator who will, for lack of a better way to put it, hurt an animal. Or children. Again, it comes down to whether or not it's gratuitous. For me, when I'm reading or watching anything, it's all about how well it's done. A well-written story can get away with more than just a slapdash thrown together.
Oh, for sure.
And the same thing with movies. As much as I love super low budget independent films, so I don't nope out, as one would say, when it comes to that. I'm not going into something looking for it, but I do applaud when a creative will do something. And that sort of reminds me of the I don't know if this is apocryphal or not, but Assault on Precinct 13, the story of the scene with the ice cream truck where they kill, I don't know how familiar you are with the movie.
I haven't seen it in a long time.
Where they kill a child at the ice cream truck, I believe, if I remember this correctly. And what I've heard and read in numerous places was that the MPAA told John Carpenter to cut it. Had to cut it, or they were going to give it an X rating or whatever it was at the time. And so he cut it only from the version he submitted to them,
Oh, jeez.
got his rating, and then released the movie with that scene.
No.
And I've seen the movie with that scene. So, but as I said, I don't know if that's just an apocryphal tale or if that's really the way it happened. But obviously, John Carpenter has a reason for doing what he's doing.
Well, I think people, I mean, I don't know. I honestly think people are more okay with seeing kids being killed in horror movies than seeing animals being killed in horror movies.
Oh, absolutely.
And in fact, the newest Halloween trilogy, I was watching something or listening to something about the first one. They did kill a dog originally in the first one, and they took the scene out because they're like, no, today's audiences are, this is going to be too much. Like all the other violence and gore in the movie, but the scene with the dead dog, and they don't even show the dog being killed.
Right.
It was just, it's just the dog dead, and clearly not by natural means, because I believe it was supposed to be hanging from a tree.
Mm-hmm.
But they cut it, at least if I'm remembering correctly, they cut it out because...
Interesting. Well, the first time I saw that movie was on Blu-ray, and I watched the unedited cut. And it's in there.
Yeah,
so I'm guessing that's one of the things that...
got
Because I
cut
have the
out.
theatrical cut as well.
Yeah, I would put money on it. It is not in the theatrical cut. Because I know that they were like, no, this is not going to fly. So, like, that's what I meant when I said, that would never fly with today's audience. Even this same movie, same franchise, like they would do it in 1978, and they wouldn't do it in 2020. So it's just it's a fascinating thing to muse on about our culture, I think. Mm-hmm. But that would be like a whole nother 2 or 3 hours, so we don't need to go there.
I do want to be clear to people. I love animals, and actually one of my favorite subgenres of horror is animals attacking people.
Oh, yes.
I'm rooting for the animals.
Night of the Lepus.
I have the Rift. Are you familiar with Rift Tracks?
Mm-hmm.
I have the Rift Tracks channel on my TV, and it's my background. Because I always need noise. Unless I'm reading, I need background noise. So I just have that on, and they show Night of the Lepus very often. It's in heavy rotation on there. But I just recently, again, from Arrow, maybe, I got Day of the Animals, which I loved when I was
That's a great
growing
one,
up.
yeah.
I got Grizzly.
We bought that one when we went out. I didn't have Halloween. I thought I had it, and I didn't have it, so we had to go out and buy it the other day. And we also bought Grizzly, so we're going to watch that one tonight.
Grizzly. I just recently got Slugs.
I have not seen that one.
I've read the book, the Sean Hudson book, but I haven't seen the movie. But I got the special edition from, again, one of those companies that, whether it was Vinegar Syndrome or Severin, I don't remember. So, again, a heyday for horror re-releases and things. But yeah, so I love to see animals attacking people, even more so than when a creative is brave enough to harm an animal in their movie. I want to see animals harming people.
Cocaine Bear.
I recently watched that. I loved it. It was so much fun.
It was great. We were howling.
So much fun. So yeah, Halloween. I have the first three, the original first three, and I have the new trilogy. That's all that I have in my Halloween collection.
Okay, the first Halloween 3 does not count. Come on, that's not even a Halloween movie. It has nothing to do with the rest of the Halloween movies. How do
I
you even
like
have that? Come on.
I like that movie and almost wore my Halloween 3 shirt.
6 more days to Halloween, Halloween,
And
Halloween.
it's actually, I don't know if you have kids. I don't know how familiar you are with Animaniacs.
Oh yeah.
I have a shirt that's like the Animaniacs logo, but it's 3 kids wearing those masks.
Oh God.
And it says Halloween. And,
That's hilarious.
I almost wore that, but it was in the laundry, so I went with my son to Satan. And yes, it does not fit in, but I enjoy it. It's one of my mother's favorite, possibly her favorite horror movie.
That's great.
She's not the huge horror fan that some of us are. Um, but yeah, for me that's enough. I haven't seen Rob Zombie's Halloween 2,
Yeah.
and I haven't seen the last Halloween before Rob Zombie made his, the one with the reality show in the house.
Oh yeah.
I haven't seen that one, but I've
I
seen
have,
all
sadly.
of the rest. um, so wow, time is flying.
I know.
So let's anything else you want to say about Halloween, the original Halloween, before we sort of just quickly go through some of his other films?
Um, that's when I became a fan of Jamie Lee Curtis, like all the rest of us, because
We all did.
that's when she came to public attention, and yay, she finally got that Academy Award, right? So good for her.
Yeah, always been a fan. And do you remember a show called Fridays? It was on ABC, I believe, and it was essentially Saturday Night Live, but on Friday nights. So it was a live sketch comedy show, and Jamie Lee Curtis was the host one episode and I think it was like the first time she sort of returned to horror at the time. I could be completely wrong about that, but she did like her opening skit was her running from The Shape
Oh, that's
and
funny.
running out of the studio and knocking on doors and trying to find someone to help her.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. So classic, just a
It's
classic.
classic. It is classic. Everybody should. I mean, you can't avoid really watching it on Halloween because it's playing all the time.
Yes.
Like I think it starts October 1st. You can find it on any like AMC or whatever. But
Despite the fact that I have all of this stuff on Blu-ray and DVD, and I have Shudder, with all the streaming services, I still just love the fact that in October everybody starts playing horror and Halloween stuff.
it's awesome.
I did grab a little stack of some John Carpenter stuff, and I checked; they are all from Scream Factory. So, one of the other things that you suggested we could talk about, which was the one that I said, "Hey, let's do that," and then you said, "No, not quite like that." But one of the other ones was, I have my ring light, and I try to avoid the reflection. The fog.
The fog, yes. Lock your doors, close your windows.
With Jamie Lee Curtis, Adrienne Barbeau, Tom Atkins. Just another one that I love, and it's the building suspense. Plus, anytime it gets foggy around here, I get to make jokes about leper ghost pirates. So, thoughts on the fog?
It is far superior to The Mist. I hated the Stephen King version of The Mist where the ending was so incredibly depressing.
See, I love that ending.
Really? Oh, man.
Because he went there.
I know, but the thing about horror is that it's like the whole final girl, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's hope. Someone survives. Like you go through all these horrible experiences, and it's horrible and desperate, but there's light at the end of the tunnel. Somebody survives, somebody makes it. But that ending,
it is soul crushing.
It's the bleakest of the bleak.
The Mist is my favorite Stephen King story. And I do really enjoy the movie. I like that ending. I like the hopeful ending of the story. Again, I'm all over the map when it comes to stuff. I think as long as the ending is earned, it can be bleak or depressing or whatever. And I felt that it was. And the fact that, I mean, he just compounds it with us seeing the woman that left the store early on the army truck. But I can see where one might think The Fog is better. And it is a classic.
It is.
Have you seen the remake?
I have seen the remake. I don't hate it.
I do.
I don't love it.
I'm not a fan.
I don't remember it that well, honestly. The only thing I really remember about it is some scene where there's some underwater stuff happening. And I've always had this horrible fear of drowning. So anything like that, just triggers me. But I think the fact that that's all I remember probably also says a lot about it.
They added a love story.
That's right.
Which just did not work for me. Plus, I think the bad, late 90s, early aughts CGI, just it didn't work for me. And I'm absolutely a fan of practical effects. I don't hate CGI. Obviously, the MCU
right
built on CGI. But for horror, to me, I like a grittiness to my horror.
Yeah.
And a lot of CGI makes it too pretty. If you know what I mean, too clean.
Yeah, I can see that.
So any other than liking it more than The Mist, thoughts on The Fog?
I mean, that they killed the babysitter again. I mean, what happened to John Carpenter as a child? This is what I want to know. He has a thing against babysitters. No. That when I watched the movie, the first time was not expecting that. The nice little old lady gets the hook. It builds suspense really well. It's got the creepy ghost story, the haunted ship, the revenge, and then I really like the end where, in addition to the town surviving, there's also the ghosts got justice.
Yes.
Right. So, it's everything, right? It's the whole package. So, but I know that we're probably running out of time. My absolute favorite John Carpenter movie is The Thing.
There it is.
I first ran across the story reading the serialized version of Who Goes There in Starlog.
Wow.
And I had no idea that The Thing was based on that story. And when I first saw it, I was just hooked from minute one. The dog running across the ice, the music again, boom, 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 to the very last scene where, who is it? The ambiguity of it. And do they even know? It's a perfect movie, and the remake of it I also don't hate. I
actually saw again, another thing I love about October is all the stores putting out their Halloween displays and all the movies that you can now buy. And Walmart does a lot of, I don't know if it's just Walmart, but they have a lot of glow in the dark slip cases on their movies and things. And there's a 3-pack of The Thing that has
Really?
John Carpenter's The Thing, the original movie, and the prequel movie, which I was tempted to pick up, even though I already, I have this from Scream Factory, all the special features and everything. I was tempted to pick it up, one, because it was a kind of cool looking glow-in-the-dark cover, and two, I don't have the other 2 movies. And it's like $8.
I'm glad you told me, because my oldest son actually works at Walmart, and now I can put that on my Christmas list, and he can pick it up with his employee discount. Perfect. Win-win.
There you go.
Yeah, the call out too is that Lindsay in Halloween is watching The Thing, the original version of The Thing on TV, which I think is just awesome. But
yeah, he obviously was a fan.
Yeah, I'm glad he got to make it, because it is it says the ultimate in alien terror on here, and I don't know. I mean, Aliens is my other favorite horror film.
Absolutely fantastic film.
It is, but I think probably just in terms of sheer terror and ambiguity of the ending, that The Thing has to win. Aliens is so good, but probably because the entire movie is full of awesome quotes that you can use at any time. Game over, man. Game over. Nuke it from space. I mean, come on. That movie gave us a generation of quotes.
Get away from her, you bitch.
Yes. So, but just in terms of sheer terror, I think The Thing has to win.
I got to see The Thing in the theater.
Oh, nice.
Probably opening weekend, because that's what we did back in the day. And I'm always amazed when people remind me that it was not a huge success when it first came out. It blew me away. Those effects. Plus, as a John Carpenter fan, I'm a huge Kurt Russell fan. Just an amazing movie. Now, I don't. Is your family a board game or a tabletop game family at all?
Oh, we have tons and tons of board games.
Because there are 2 board games based on The Thing.
I did not know that.
They are social deduction games where one seems a little easier than the other, but basically at the start, everybody is randomly given a card that will tell them whether they're human or they're the thing. And you're trying to keep the base going, solving these problems, and get to the helicopter by the end with just humans. But anytime you interact with somebody, you might become infected. So you never know how many things there might be. And in one of the versions, the dogs are running around, and if you interact with the dogs, you might become infected.
Oh, nice.
So just keep an eye out for those. Next time you're looking at board games.
They sound like they probably are hard to find, though.
I think one of them is out of print, but I think the other one is readily available. I think I have a local game store that I go to, so I don't know that you're going to find them at Walmart. Although you might be able to order them. I order a lot of stuff online that they don't have in store. So, but anyway, just if you're a big fan of The Thing,
that sounds cool. There. I was actually just thinking about it before the interview. We had an alien board game when I was growing up, where I think another player controlled the xenomorphs, and then some players were the different crew members, and you had to survive a certain number of turns on the Nostromo without getting caught by the xenomorph. So that game was so old. I'm sure you probably would have to go on eBay to find a copy of it now. But
there are a lot of new Aliens games, though. There's one called Fate of the Nostromo. It's a cooperative game with different scenarios. Very, very fun. And I don't know if you're familiar with the mechanism of deck building. As a not like Magic the Gathering, but there are games where you're building your deck from cards that are part of the game. And part of the game is building your deck. But there's an Aliens deck building game where you could end up with a face hugger on you. If you don't get rid of it, the chest burster will come out. And if you're playing the base game, you just die. But if you're playing with the advanced rules, you start playing as a xenomorph.
Oh, cool.
And there's actually a Predator version as well that you can mix with it. So you can play like Alien versus Predator.
Wow.
And stuff. But
that sounds fun. You're giving me all these ideas for my Christmas list. I'm going to have to rewatch this just so I can write them all down.
Well, write down, if you like the idea of the deck building game, Legendary Aliens is what it's called.
Aliens,
okay. Or Legendary Encounters Aliens. And it's very suspenseful because these cards come out face down and you have to scan them to flip it to see if is it a xenomorph? Is it Jonesy? Is it Bishop? And then if the aliens make it to a certain area, they'll start attacking you and you take wounds.
Oh, and you just said Jonesy. You remember I talked about our kitty that died?
Oh, no.
See, can you see that?
Yeah, a little bit.
There, yeah. That? Yeah, that's Jonesy. Oh, Jonesy. Our kitty was named Jonesy. And he could have, I'll tell you what, he could have taken down a xenomorph by himself.
Nice. I need to get that book it's a kid's book that's the story from.
Yes, we have that
his
book.
Perspective.
Yes, it's so cute.
And I'm just to do this. Hopefully this will show up well. I just took this picture today. We'll see if I can make this show up. I took a picture of my niece.
Oh my gosh. Is that like a stuffed face hugger?
Yeah, it's a little tiny stuffed face hugger.
Oh my gosh, that is adorable.
I posted it on social media and said, I told my niece not to answer that distress signal.
That is so funny.
She's 2.5. And she...
Oh, yeah. Wait, what did her parents think of that?
I don't know that her father has seen it yet.
Oh, lovely.
But well. I've taught her... if I go like this, she'll go Cthulhu. So I'm trying to get her in there young.
That's the only way to do it.
All right. I don't want to keep you too much longer. So any final thoughts on The Thing?
Dogs die in that one too.
Yes, they do.
But it's in service to the story. So
yes. And oh, please.
I was going to say my son noped out on that part of the movie too. So
now it's called. People call it part of his apocalyptic trilogy, along with which one is that? In the Mouth of Madness and
Prince of Darkness.
Prince of Darkness. Are you a fan of all three? I mean, obviously you're a fan of The Thing. Quick thoughts on the other two?
I mean, I like them both. I like In the Mouth of Madness less. Just because the ending was too ambiguous.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
And I don't think The Thing fits in with the other two.
It does seem to me to be the outlier.
Yeah,
because the other two have a very specific feel.
Yeah, I mean they have very religious overtones, right? And The Thing is like science fiction, right? With aliens, and there's nothing religious about it. It's not. There's none of those themes really present.
Yeah.
So
You said John Carpenter must have a problem with babysitters. I'm wondering if he has, would it be agoraphobia or claustrophobia? So many of his movies deal with people completely isolated and being under attack, some sort of attack. Assault on Precinct 13. So, right off the bat. And yes, Laurie Strode's in a neighborhood, but it's a very dark, almost desolate neighborhood. She's very much on her own. But then you get to The Thing and Prince of Darkness. They're trapped in that church. And we could go to Ghosts of Mars.
Oh,
Very,
that's an excellent movie. Like,
very,
nothing fits in better with that one than
very,
the other
very
two.
Assault on Precinct 13 vibes with that one.
Yeah.
So yeah, I like it. I dig it. I like that isolated under assault kind of feel to the movies.
Well,
in general.
it automatically, like, you have to do less work as a storyteller, right? Because your setting is providing
Yes.
Atmosphere and tension already. So that's like one less thing that you have to do. So it's brilliant,
Yes. All right. Any final thoughts on John Carpenter?
If anybody who's watching this hasn't seen any of his movies, then you need to remedy that post haste. And any of the movies that we've talked about tonight.
Absolutely. And I could have pulled down plenty more.
Yeah.
I often forget, I don't know why, but I often forget he directed Christine.
That's right.
Yeah. But, and I have that somewhere up here. Anything you want to say about your work? Anything upcoming that you want to promote?
No, I don't really have anything big coming out. So, but The Hunger did just release on October 3rd, so it's still brand new. So, reviews are always great.
I have recorded my review. It is in the queue. It'll be a little while. It'll be a few weeks before it comes out.
It doesn't matter when they hit. And I appreciate that, by the way.
Well, I appreciate you coming out here to talk.
Yeah, no, of course. I love doing this kind of thing because I love talking with people who love the same things that I do.
That's the whole reason I do this, just so I can talk to people. If you care to share, where can people find you on social media?
Well, you can start at my website, which is Marsheila, Marsheila, Rockwell, ROCKWELL.com. I have an About Me and a Contact page, 2 different pages there that have pretty much all of my socials on there, or links to them. But I'm on Twitter still, Blue Sky, Facebook, Instagram, kind of on TikTok, but I'm an old. I don't really get it, so sorry.
Well, I'll throw some of those links down in this description for folks. Yeah, so thank you very much. If you could just hang out for a minute, I'm going to do my outro. There you have it, people. Thank you to Marcy Rockwell for being here. If you people have any comments or questions or corrections, throw those in the comments below. Please like, share, and subscribe, all the usual YouTube stuff. As I said, I'll have some links for Marsheila's socials and some of her books down in the description. And I think we are finished here. So thank you, everybody. And until next time, read more books.
Bye.
Bye. And